Yeah, sometimes I feel like this is my life right here. Forever sticking my head in the boot. What's in there? Always looking for something that's not there. Fred's just going to sit back and watch the spectacle. Oh, it's more interesting to bother Fred than it is to bother the boot. And then I get ticked off and I go take it out on somebody, just like Buster does here with Fred. Let's watch it for a minute. I told you before, this is every day. Every single day, at least 12 or 15 or 20 times a day they do this. And every day it's like the first time. Jesus, you hear all the claws? Oh well, let's get to work now. All right, Buster. All right, guys. Let's see if we can't get cracking on this thing. What we're going to do is clean up this cabinet a little bit. In order to do that, I need to take these little escutcheons off. They're just held on with some little nails, which means I need to use a little, like a putty knife, to pry them up. Okay, so let me get under this one first. You have to be careful, you don't want to gouge the wood. But this is the best way I can think of. Oh, that one just lifts right out of there. I'll probably put a little glue in these holes to secure these things. I'm not going to do anything with those except maybe wash them with a little bit of water. That's it. And there's the escutcheon. Escutcheon is just something that's pressed out of a little bit of, looks like thin steel. But it's kind of pretty. It's actually quite pretty. I kind of like it. Open a little bit of liquid strength. It's about 11 o'clock on Saturday night. I'm a little tired, but not terrible. Now we're going to use a little bit of this product right here. I call it Howard's Restore all the time. Comes in various colors. This one's ebony brown. This one here happens to be dark oak. And it's really, the official title is Restore a Finish by a company called Howard. It's good stuff. It's basically a little bit of dye mixed in with some lacquer solvent. It's not really a stain, but what it does is it does kind of stain the wood a little bit. And it does a really nice job of rejuvenating radios and other items, antique furniture and stuff, to make them look real nice. I'm going to go get some little plastic feet to tap into these here. I'm going to use the small ones. Real simple. I just start them like so. I never use the metal part of the hammer against them because these are nylon. It'll crack that nylon. So, but this is really nice if you don't want to be scratching the surface or whatever it is you're putting this radio on. And so what I do, rather than just hitting it with the hammer, the bare hammer, is I actually will use a little block of wood, or I will use a rubber hammer. That works too. In fact, I forgot I have a new little rubber and plastic hammer, so this should work just fine. So just tap that in. Don't hit it too hard all at once. They do break if you're not careful. Grab a little punch and tap these nails in. Okay, there we go. So now this thing can be set safely down on a table. Okay, let's begin on the top here. I did not realize that this cabinet was coming loose. So this Howard Restore, you just sort of wipe it on, and don't be afraid to get it wet. Let it sit for a few minutes, and then you polish it off. And as you can see, it kind of makes the light areas, the worn areas, look darker and more new. You don't want to let the stuff dry on there. Now this one's not bad. He did not ask me to restore the cabinet, and I wouldn't want to anyway. I would have referred it to a restorer. But I'll clean it up a little bit. Nothing to it, guys, and it does help. It makes it look a lot better. See the difference? That's not done, and that is. So it does help. I'm getting low on this particular color of Howard. And you can scrub a little bit with it, and it'll remove some grime. But it's not the best cleaner, but it does okay. See, I'm removing kind of that image around the escutcheon. You can see the difference from one side to the other. Okay, it's significantly better. Let me go get a couple clamps and some glue, and we'll see what we can do with this thing. Alright, so I'm trying to get a little bit of glue in this thing, and it's tough because it's I don't want to take it apart. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking these strips and I'm packing glue back in there. And I'll wipe off the excess when I'm all done doing this part. I'm not making a super whamidine restorer's repair here. All I'm doing is trying to strengthen this up a little bit so it'll last some time. So use a strip. Now I like to use cardboard because it will absorb some of the glue, and then you take it where it needs to go and then you kind of squeeze it a little bit and it comes back out and you just slide the cardboard out. But everybody has their own way. It's kind of like a paintbrush for the cracks. But I am the last person in the world to be considered an expert in this kind of thing. So you find your own way. I suspect it'll be better than mine. It's a lot harder once that's hardened up to clean that up. Just use a water moistened paper towel. Let me get it on the other side and then we'll squeeze the whole thing together. Let's squeeze it down. These clamps are made of soft plastic so they won't hurt the wood. Alright, we'll let that sit overnight and that should be good. Alright, so now we've got that taken care of, we're going to have to take care of this speaker cloth. So let me go get the speaker cloth material and we'll get going on that too. I'm going to choose some speaker cloth here. Now as you can see, this piece here is a real nice piece of cloth from a vintage radio that I changed because it had discolored around the speaker. But there's plenty of non-discolored areas on this cloth. And yeah, that actually will look pretty good. I am not going to go into the gory details of how I glue this onto the board. You've seen that before, and if you haven't seen it in mine, go back and look. I think it was the RCA 811K, but it might have been a different one where I did that. And if you can't find it in my stuff, I know John from Arkansas, Joe Earn 1, has done it a couple times too. What I used was some iron-on hemming material. It's like an iron-on adhesive that you just lay down on the wood and you iron this cloth right to it, and it sticks like crazy, but yet it'll come off when you need it to. And that's all there is to it. So we're going to go on to installing this board into the cabinet. Alright, I actually don't think I need to polish this, I just need to wash it. Now I'm just going to take this and wash it in a little soap and water and it should be ready to go. Okay, I'm mounting that little speaker back, that backing with the speaker cloth on it. And instead of using little tiny nails, I'm using a very small staple gun with small staples. So they secure, I think, very well, and They're easier to do, and it's easier to do without screwing up the radio. It's a little clumsy with these clamps on here, but I'm managing. As you can see, just go ahead and staple that in. It does a good job. We'll show you what it looks like on the other side here shortly. Reminds me of a silver tone I bought once. Somebody had used a staple gun and went all the way around. It was a large radio. Went all the way around the entire speaker, big speaker cloth, covered nearly the full front of the radio, and they hit it with about 60 staples, and every single one of those staples went through the veneer on the front of the radio. You'd think they'd check after the first couple, but no, go ahead and do all 60 of them. I got the radio cheap as a result, but it breaks my heart that somebody would do that to a radio. That's going to do for that. Let's take a look at what it looks like from the front. Now, some of the blemishes that you see around the perimeter of this grill look like maybe speaker cloth folded over or something like that. But what it really is you can see now it's the perimeter of the border of that speaker grill that's discolored as the paint has come off. That's all. With this guy around, I don't know how I get anything done, man. He's just so doggone entertaining that he's a lot more interesting sometimes than radios, at least for me. But again, I'm a cat guy. I haven't the faintest idea what that poor towel did to hack Freddy off, but he's kind of mad at it now, and he intends to kill it. What are you doing, Fred? Fred, what are you doing? Are you hungry? No, I use that towel all the time, so I hope he quits on it pretty soon. This is a dangerous game I'm playing. Yes, Give me that towel. Give me that towel. I have many holes in my fingers to prove that. Give me that towel. That's not your towel. That's my towel. Ow! Okay, it's your towel. You win. I hope you don't mind Fred and I sort of wasting a little of your time here. You can always fast forward over it. You know how to do it. You just drag it down at the bottom there. But Fred has learned if he comes into my room and acts goofy, I'll let him in. I'll let him stay in for a while. I don't know what that towel's done to piss him off. I've said it before, and I'll say it again now. Fred's not exactly the brightest bulb in the chandelier, but he's as good-natured as they come. He wouldn't hurt it. Well, he'd hurt a flea, but he wouldn't hurt any of us. And he doesn't even hurt Buster. He knows when to pull back. Did you win, Fred? Did you win? You're such a dingbat. Well, it doesn't take Fred long to tire out. And I know Fred pretty well now. We've had him a couple years, and he's starting to get tired, I can tell. Within 3 or 4 minutes, he'll be napping on my chair. In any event, neither the chair nor the towel are mine. I'm just going to have to go out and buy new stuff. Well, that's enough of this silliness. I think we should get to work now. I think you won. Hey. All right, I've cleaned these escutcheons up, and I'm going to go ahead and mount them on the radio now. I've put a little bit of glue on each nail so that when I drive them in the hole, they'll actually stay there. Okay, and then you take the lightest hammer you have, and you just tap those buggers in there. All right, and then you wipe off any glue that happens to ooze from under the nail head, which shouldn't be much because you put the glue on the other side. All right, let's do the other one. Now, all I can do really is let this cabinet sit overnight. My buddy has an old Jackson Bell. I've never really messed with those, don't know anything about them. An old Jackson Bell that he's looking to looking to let go of. And he thought of me when he realized that. It's a neat little sort of half tombstone, half cathedral. You'll see what I mean when I show you some pictures of it. But it's about 1934, about the same year as this Grunow. And it should be an interesting radio. And so we did a little horse trading. I have an Atwater Kent end table that I initially bought so that I could put one of my Atwater Kents in it. But truth is, I really kind of lost interest in it because it's so big that it'll be in my... I really have no place to put it in my house. So we're going to do a little horse trading. He's going to trade me that Jackson Bell for that end table. And I think it's a pretty good trade. And he's a good friend, nice guy. And I met him early on when I first started getting into radios. And we help each other out as much as we can. All right, guys. I'm going to shut it down for tonight, and we'll get back to it in the morning. In order to mount this knob onto the radio shaft, I have to have some sort of a collar in here that has capability of a set screw holding it in place. And what I'm going to have to do is epoxy the thing into the knob here. Now, I've drilled the hole a little bit larger than I wanted to. That's just a learning because this plastic it's hard to drill, so the drill wobbles a bit. Now, when I use a drill press, I'll be able to get exactly the right size, but I've got to make a fixture first before I can use a drill press. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to epoxy a collar in here, a shaft collar with a set screw. Now, I have these double shaft collars right here that are used for couplers. But for right now, I want to cut this in half and make a single collar. Now, I have a bunch of them ordered on Amazon, but this guy wants his radio back, so I don't know how long they're going to take. They're not primed, so they could be... Hell, they could be coming from China. I think they're another week out. So I'm going to go ahead and cut one of these and make it so that I can epoxy that into the knob. So let me get out the trusty Craftsman roto tool. And I've had this thing for, gosh, a very long time. Well, the fact that it's made in the USA tells you how long I've had this. And look at it, it still works great. I take good care of it, but it's a good machine. I sure wish we still made them here. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and put just make some little notches around this collar to give that epoxy something to grab to. That's not even steel, it's brass. Okay, but that's funny. It doesn't smell strong like I usually smell when I'm cutting steel. So yeah, that makes sense. In case you're wondering, I am wearing safety glasses. If you do this and you don't wear safety glasses, you're a dum-dum. So make sure you put on some safety glasses, okay? Okie dokie. That'll be ready for the next one. That epoxy will kind of get in these notches and help hold it in place. Normally I would clean up the edge of this, but that edge having a little bit of flashing on it will also help hold it in place. So I think I'll just leave it as is. Okay, let me get the epoxy and we'll restart here in a second. Well, guys, I got a camera that's malfunctioning. It's shutting itself off, so I thought I forgot to turn it on a couple of times, and then I realized it's shutting itself off, so I'm trying a different camera right now. This is important. I want you to see this. So what I had thought I recorded but didn't actually record was installing these collars that I cut. And I don't even think you got to see me cut those because the camera's not working right. So let me start from the beginning, and I'll keep an eye on that stupid camera. I have a whole bunch of these couplers here that are meant to lengthen a shaft, okay, or locate things on a shaft, whatever. Well, I don't need a double. They have a double set screw. I don't need a double set screw. What I need is a single. So all I did was cut these with my Dremel, okay, cut them in half, So now I have 2 half collars, and on each one I took the Dremel and I made some sort of shallow notches, okay, in this thing. Actually, I went this way, okay, around the whole circumference of each of the half collars, to give epoxy something to grab to. Now what I'm going to install this into the knob with was this Loctite epoxy quickset multi-purpose epoxy. I mixed up this epoxy in a little cup, little plastic cup, with a screwdriver, and then I applied the epoxy into the knob with some cardboard sticks like this, just around the edge of the knob. Okay, I packed it around the edge of the knob, staying away from the set screw hole, of course. All right, packed it around the edge, Then I picked up that half a collar, and I slid that half a collar into the knob, lining up the hole in the collar with the hole in the knob. And then when I got that, you know, fairly well lined, or where I could see the two, then I took the Allen wrench and kind of lined up the holes, okay? And then I took one of these set screws, right? And you just put that set screw on the Allen wrench. See, that's the beauty of this kind. I mean, unless you're straight down, you can kind of hold these with the Allen wrench and maneuver them, get them in position. Okay, that's why I like these Allen type set screws. So holding the knob, I kind of fed the Allen screw in, got it into the hole, wiggle a little bit so it would line them up, and then turned the set screw until I could see the end of it peeking into the inside of the collar. Once I'm there, I backed it out a little bit because the idea is the set screw extends into the knob, and I wanted it to help locate it properly. Okay. The epoxy all the while is beginning to, you know, do its thing and set up, so it's thickening, so that will hold this thing kind of in position. You see, I drilled these holes a little bit big because I didn't use a drill press. This is an experiment. So once I got all the collars into the knobs that way, I cut very small pieces of this cardboard sheet here, and I made some little shims that I packed down into the knob to kind of firm it up. That's only on, actually only did it on a couple of them where the holes were a little bit too loose, and that kind of packed it up. And if it was off center a little bit, then I kind of favored it so that the collar moved to the center where I put the shims. Making sure, of course, the whole time that the shim is level inside the knob, because you don't want the knob to sit on there all crooked, okay? So now it's setting up pretty good. It's sticky, but it's hardening, you can tell. And I'm going to let this let these harden up, and then I'll go ahead and try them on the chassis. I'm really sorry about that I lost. I had some pretty good video, I thought, of doing this job. But next time I do 3D knobs, I'll show you that then. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and prepare these two to put on the chassis. These two here I'm just going to set aside. They're just, oops, do I have it wrong? Nope. Yeah, these two here I'm gonna set aside. They were just experiments. These two here are going on the chassis. Huh. There we go. I knew that wasn't right. I'm blind, but I'm not colorblind, and the light wasn't showing right. Okay, yeah, these two are going on the radio. They're the walnut. And this one here, I sprayed with the mahogany. It's going to just be set aside as an experiment. We'll mess with it some other time. And I'll get the chassis in place here so that we can go ahead and install these knobs on the chassis. Now they may be too big. There's a chance they're too big, and it didn't occur to me how close the knob shaft sits to the escutcheon on the radio. So if they're too big, I've got another plan. When we first got this radio, we kind of took it apart to get all the fragile stuff off of it, right? And these dials were one of those fragile items that we pulled off early on in the game. And what we want to do now is clean them up best we can, but we want to be really careful because I've got this towel moistened very lightly with water. And this may be water-based, I just don't know. And really the only way to find out is to test it somehow. And the only way to do that is to test it on some of the actual ink. So what I'm going to do right here is real carefully wipe these numbers and see if these numbers stay. Now, a lot of these ones that were printed on phenolic like this were not water-based. They were okay. I've done some Philcos that were okay and other radios. So I don't see that coming off. I do see a lot of dirt coming off, which is a good thing. So let me just try real carefully over here. Okay, so far so good. Now, when you have dirt that's stubborn and you don't want to continue wiping like crazy, you kind of have to scrape it. And the best tool that you have at your disposal for scraping delicate stuff is your fingernail, because your fingernail is relatively soft. And my philosophy on these things is, if the dirt doesn't want to come off, then we need to give it its wish and leave it on there, because we can do a lot of damage to these things if we scrub them too much. All right, and that's a real big deal, because this is like the character of the radio. People care an awful lot about these because this is what gives it its style, man. This is what gives it that mystique. Set screw came out of there. Remember, keeping the numbers on there is much more important than getting the dirt off. I'll get enough dirt off that it'll be noticeable, see? But that little spot right there does not want to come off. Let's see here. There's a little spot right there. It doesn't want to come off. I'll try just a little more and then I'll quit. Yeah. It's not coming off, and I'll destroy things if I keep trying. So there we go. You don't want to polish these, as tempting as it is. There's no point in trying to bring a shine out because they weren't shiny. They're supposed to be matte because you don't want them to glare. And you don't want to, if you try to polish them, you'll polish those numbers clean off. Just ask me how I know. Okay, that's all you do with that. Bang, that's it. Same with this guy here. There's dirt on there, and you get that off, and then you leave the rest alone. Well, they went to a lot of trouble to give some meaningless indication of volume with this dial, don't you think? I mean, these numbers really don't mean anything. They're relative, but it goes up to 20. It could have gone up to 108 and meant exactly the same thing. Let me put these on the chassis. Let's first get this tuning dial on there. Okay, we're going to take off this old knob. Tuning condenser is fully closed, and that should be set such that the tuning dial is reading at 55. See this thing, the witness, I was going to say the witness marks will tell you. There you go. So there's a witness mark on this brass shaft right here, and so that confirms that that's where I want this guy. And of course during the alignment I might have to adjust it a little. That's okay. Okay. Perfect. There is a witness mark for this guy too. It's sitting, when this is open all the way, that's sitting directly on the top. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Oh, there's several witness marks on this guy. So when this thing is off, the off indication should be straight up. All right. Okay, there we go. Should be straight up when it's off. You can tell it's late and I'm tired, man. I gotta quit working late at night. That's funny. The indication never goes any higher than 15. I don't know if that's a replacement tuning or volume pot or not, but they went to the trouble of indicating all the way over to here, but it only goes up to the 15. All right, well, there you go. So we got those on. We got this little shield on behind the tuning, this little cardboard behind the tuning condenser. Really, we're ready for the alignment. Okay, next on our list is the alignment. I'm going to touch on the highlights here without asking you to listen to my generator sing for 2 or 3 hours. So let's just hit the big things, shall we? Here we go. There are 3 IF trimmers on this thing instead of the usual 4. Like I said, it was an inexpensive radio. Okay, it looks like the second IF only has 1, and that's on the primary. Okay, so here's the second IF right here. And there's the trimmer right there. First IF, there are 2 trimmers, one here and one here. Okay, you do the IFs first. Always when you align an AM radio, you do the IFs first. And this one, the IF frequency is 455, so there we go. This is a transformerless set, so what we need to be aware of is that this thing the chassis can go hot on us. There is no transformer to isolate us from the line voltage, okay? So you need to be particularly careful when you're working on these radios. Alright guys, let's see what I do with this IF here. Oh, going down. Going up. Up. Going down. At least it's peakable. Is that a word? Peakable? Okay, let's do the secondary on the first IF. So we're just going to do the IF first, and I'm going to see how it picks up stations. Boy, these things are really tight. It's like they've never been turned before. Let's just see what we get here.
You have that money just sitting aside in a savings account? Well, you could say defense today.
Getting a bit of squealing. I'm going to have to detune a little bit. Let me go through the rest of the alignment first, and then we'll go ahead and check on that squealing again. Okay, I have a question for subscribers. You know, I find watching alignment videos to be like unbearably boring. And I just suspect that's true for everyone. You know, at least, you know, an hour of listening to that signal generator going is just not entertaining to me. So let me ask you guys this. I'm going to cut the alignment off now after having done the IFs. I did the oscillator and everything else in this radio, but I'm going to cut it off right now. But what I'd like to know is, in the future, would you rather I did include the more detail on the alignments, or I did not? Would you please let me know in the comments? I'd sure appreciate it. Well, guys, we covered a lot of ground tonight, and I think it's time for me to hit the sack. Like I said, I'm getting tired. So I'm going to wrap this up. I hope I've been able to help if you've got one of these radios. And next time around, we're going to go ahead and put this chassis in the cabinet and wrap the whole shebang up. So from your Western Outpost in Salt Lake City, this is Michael, and that's all for now.